Hey, everybody, and welcome to episode 127 of the Self-Publishing Roundtable. I am your moderator, Wade Finnegan, and my co-panelists for this evening are Erica Conroy, with an airplane or something flying by, Xavier Granville,
Zoom. Also an airplane.
also an airplane. Not sure where Liam Kingman is. Hopefully he didn't get trampled by a moose, but hopefully he'll be back next week. Our very special guest is recurring guest, too. One of the few that actually comes back for more than like twice is Jay Thorn. Jay, you probably know, but just in case you haven't been living on a rock, is an awesome horror writer. Probably his most popular, but he's also does science fiction and action adventure and stuff. He has published lots and lots of words, over 1 million I've been told, and sold lots and lots of books. Yeah, and he's just an all-around great guy, and he's a heavy metal fan, which makes me happy too. So, Jay, thanks for coming back on.
Hey, thanks for having me, everyone. Really cool.
Awesome. So we got a few people watching live tonight. So Jay said he had to pay a few off, but hey, we got them here. So make sure you guys throw your comments in. Put in your questions, and we'll do the best that we can to get your comments live on the air. We love doing that. So yeah.
There's one comment already. It says that Wade is an Oompa Loompa.
That was probably from Erica, but I haven't looked yet. So yeah. I don't know why it's doing the orange thing. But,
yeah. Maybe it's like that episode of Magic School Bus. Maybe you just ate too much things that are orange colored, like Arnold.
Yeah, too many damn carrots or something.
Yeah. This sort of thing does not happen at your old podcast.
That's right. That's right. So, Jay, what is new with you since the last time you graced us with your presence on here? What's been going on?
Oh, wow. I don't even know where to start. Lots of stuff, I guess. I don't even remember last time I was on. What's it been, 6 months or so, something like that? I don't know.
I think it's about right, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Eric, that's all that you need to know.
Yeah, I think you were on, probably closer to a year ago.
Wow, okay.
I remember it being warm, so it was definitely a different time of season. That's for sure.
Yes, yeah. I believe it was springtime, close to summer. Yeah, so
nice.
Somewhere between half a year and a year.
Yeah, so I'm basically hibernating now, kind of like X is up a little north of me. You know, it's that time of the year where you just kind of got to power through it and
bundle up, folks.
Do what you can.
Eat a lot of starchy goodness.
Get a lot of sleep, that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know. What do you want to talk about first? You have a lot of cool stuff going on. You're downplaying it, by the way, because you've been doing a lot of shit.
I just can't remember it. That's the truth. I can't remember it.
Okay, let's start off. I want to talk a little bit about the fact that you co-wrote a book with Joanna Penn. Actually, a couple of books, but I'm talking about the Risen Gods thing. How'd that come about? What's happened there?
What happened there? That was it was pretty fantastic. As you guys know, you all know, everyone knows Joanna. She's fantastic, and I've been doing a lot of collaborations for years. It's kind of one of the areas where I feel like I really grow as a writer, and I feel like I have sort of a natural affinity to kind of put projects together. And so, years ago, Joanna and I met online, and we've talked, and we don't write the same stuff, but we do have like crossover potential, I guess. And so I threw it out at one point. I'm like, wow, I'd love to co-write something with you or collaborate on something. And she was kind of lukewarm to it for a while, and then she took the James Patterson course on writing and kind of heard what he had to say about collaboration and kind of listened to his, sort of his method, and I think that kind of sold her. And so she came back to me, and we kind of pushed the start deadline back a couple times, and then we, once we sort of got into the project, then it was just fast and furious. I mean, I think it was like 19 days. We had the first draft done in 19 days, and that was the fastest I had ever written anything, either by myself or with someone else. So it was pretty crazy. And Joanna's a pro, and she's really good, and I learned a ton of stuff from her. So it was a lot of fun.
That's awesome. That's really cool. And you guys also did some nonfiction stuff too, didn't you?
Yeah, we were about. I learned this from Glenn James. I've been co-writing some stuff with him, which we're going to be putting out this year. It's going to be pretty cool. We're probably going to start with a trilogy, but we've been writing it for about 3 or 4 months. And one of the ideas he had when he was from one of his co-writing projects is he kind of keeps like a diary or a little journal in a Google Doc, and every day Glenn and I would just write notes back and forth to each other, mostly about the manuscript, but just things we wanted to remember, things we wanted to circle back to on a rewrite, that kind of stuff. And so I said to Joanna, I'm like, this works really well, we should do it. And so Joanna and I did it, and then about halfway through, she was like, you know what? Why don't we turn this into a co-writing book? I mean, it's not like a full book. It's more like a guide. But that's how that came about. So that I don't think that was part of the plan, but at a certain point we decided, like, yeah, we might as well take this and just kind of hit the highlights of collaboration.
Cool, excellent. Xavier, looks like
we got a question from Krishan. How big was that draft if you did that in 19 days?
I want to say it was around 62 or 65,000 words, and then I think the final was we ended up cutting a lot of it. I think we cut about 10,000 from first draft to publication. Cool.
All right. You just also released some. Well, I may backtrack a little bit. You got into audiobooks, correct? Yeah. And you also have some really cool narration and stuff. So can you kind of talk to our audience through how that all came about and what you did there?
Yeah. I guess it's been less than a month now. My first full-length novel is through ACX is now available on Audible. It's the book 1 of the Portal Arcane series. It's a book guide that's perma-free. And when I was in Cleveland doing the Author Marketing Live in 2014, it was the Jim Kukril's event that he did, the live event. And David Lawrence the 17th was there presenting, and we ended up striking up a conversation and kind of a friendship, and we went out to eat. And I don't know if your listeners know David Lawrence, but I think he's one of the best narrators, if not the best narrator in the world. He's phenomenal. He's done a gazillion books. He's in LA. He does voice coaching and he teaches classes. He's been all over television and radio and movies, and so anyways, I was kind of starstruck when I met him, and then we started talking, and he started asking me about my stuff, and so we went through the usual thing, and he's like, you know what, let's do this, and so we set out to do it, and that book just finished, and I told him this, and it kind of makes his head big, but I had to be truthful. Like, I was kind of blown away by his stuff. I mean, he's really, really good, and so I was extremely pleased with that, and I'm hoping that probably a little later in the spring I'm going to get to work on getting him to do books 2 and 3 of that series, because he's said he'd totally do it. He enjoyed it, so it's just a matter of kind of getting all the pieces of the puzzle into place.
Very cool. It's nice how you fall into some things like that. That's awesome.
Yeah, because I don't really know. I mean, I've done my own narration for short stories, and that's why I don't do novels, because I know how hard it is, how long it takes, how tedious it can be at times. I mean, I did like a 5,000-word short story, and then because of my background as a musician, I have all the editing tools and everything, audio stuff and all the knowledge to do it. But it's still like line by line, word by word, and so when I went through and did a few short stories, I was like, okay, I'm not gonna narrate my own novels, and plus people don't want to listen to my voice for like 7 hours on end when they're trying to read a book. This is probably more than people ever want.
Well, we won't let Zach comment on that because he might say something about it.
Yeah,
so.
Someone block him from the comments, please.
How are you offshoot question? How are you approaching marketing with those audiobooks? Are you doing anything differently with that? Have you? I
Well,
mean, it's pretty new, so.
yeah, I just started, and I'm hoping because the book is perma-free on Amazon that'll help, and we've gotten a good decent number of sales so far. Really, my big goal is I'm gonna get a book bub hopefully for the book, and hopefully get some sales off of that. So that's kind of my main. It's my main target right now. I've done some social media stuff. I've been mentioning on podcasts and things. But truthfully, I'm kind of leaning a little bit on the Audible platform, and just the fact that the number of books that are available on Audible is a small percentage of what's available on Amazon for Kindle. So I'm hoping that just sort of the smaller market or lesser availability of titles will help. But it's kind of new. It hasn't been on that long, and I did an interview with David Lawrence that's going to be on Dark Arts Theater coming up probably within 3 or 4 weeks. So I'm hoping that will help drive some sales too.
Speaking of Dark Arts Theater, would you mind telling the fans, if they aren't aware of that, what that's all about?
Yeah, that's a real passion project of mine. I started it last year, 2015, and launched it in June. And I guess technically it's a podcast. I was calling it a video magazine, and really it's for people who love heavy metal and horror. And those are the two sort of main components. It's not all music, it's not all horror, but it's a good mix. And I've found surprisingly a lot of people in this world that have those two passions. Horror and heavy metal seem to go together very well for some reason, and
I wonder why.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense at all.
I don't know.
It might be the imagery involved usually.
It could be. Yeah, it could be. So yeah, that came out in June, and I did a Netflix thing. I dropped all 10 episodes at one time, and this time I have Volume 2 that's getting ready to come out probably within 2 or 3 weeks. And
Cool.
I'm going to go probably one episode at a time at this one, and I kind of feel bad. I'll share with you guys. This first time I mentioned it. I got Don Jameson from That Metal Show to come on and talk to me about some heavy metal stuff, and then this week the That Metal Show got canceled from VH1 Classics. It kind of sucks. But,
No.
yeah. So, but that's that he's gonna kick off season 2. He's a really cool guy, and I've known him for a few years now. And whenever he comes to Cleveland, we try and get together and talk music and stuff. And so it's
Nice.
kind of bittersweet. I'm excited to kick off the new season with Don as the in the first episode, but the show's gone now. So.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's like as much as you'd said, it does fall under podcast, but it's because you end up having to do all the video side, gearing it towards YouTube. And, you have graphics, like on-air graphics for relevant to the articles that you're doing. You have multi-camera cutting back and forth. You have lighting, blah 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 blah. So I think I totally get what you're saying, where it would be a passion project.
Yeah, I'm not making a dime off of it.
Well, but I think no matter what, when you're going to be focusing on that YouTube audience, that's, if you want to step up to that level of entertainment, or at least appeal to the status quo of what people are expecting from a YouTube video. Yeah. You do have to step it up to that level.
Yeah, it's different now. Even 3 or 4 years ago, excuse me, you could slap a cell phone video up there and it'd be pretty much acceptable. But people have higher expectations now, so you really got to bring your A game.
Do you think it does help you sell any books, though? I mean, obviously you're hitting the right target audience, I would think, for a lot of your books.
Yeah, I don't think I'd ever be able to trace an A to B. I don't think it's a direct kind of thing. It's mostly about just reaching my tribe. That's really what it's about. So, yeah, I'm sure it's going to sell a few, but I'm not going to see a direct correlation, I don't think.
Yeah. Too hard to figure out. Yeah. Sounds really cool, though. I love the idea.
Well, I did it too because I love to learn, and so when I started it, when I started pre-production on, I was using like Windows Movie Maker and kind of teaching myself. Excuse me. And now I just got off Adobe Premiere, so I feel like I've learned a ton. I learned a ton about lighting. I learned a ton about setting and cuts and edits, and so I know that'll come in. That knowledge is great stuff. It'll serve me whether I'm doing video, or at least if I'm hiring someone to do video, I know what questions to ask. And I've always approached anything I do like that. Even if I don't get a monetary return, if I'm learning something, it's definitely worth it.
Great attitude.
I try. Zach Bohannon, though, I have that great attitude, then he drops in and it just all goes to hell.
Zach, he did say he was trying to be good and just listen, and he was plotting or something, doing something right.
Watch.
Well,
you watch the comments now, he'll start popping in.
Yeah, you're very right. Well, wake up the the demon. Go ahead, Xavier.
Yeah, speaking of Zach, tell us about the Horror Writers podcast that you do with him.
Yeah, we've been having a good time with it. Zach's really good. He's really dependable, and he's a sharp guy, and he does what he says he's going to do, and so that makes it really easy for me. Excuse me. I just kind of show up and talk, and he does a lot of the other stuff, and we do kind of switch off. I kind of handle the iTunes distribution side, the audio, and he takes care of the YouTube stuff. But it's been a lot of fun, and we kind of changed. We took a little bit of a risk. We went away from the writers and more towards the fans, but we still have the writers sticking around. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
Cool.
And likewise with with the YouTube show podcast with Dark Arts Theater, that's attempting to get a viewership or an audience in one fashion, whereas the Horror Authors podcast, that's more a podcast, especially in the classical sense. So how much more, and that's much more geared towards your fan base as far as listeners.
Yes.
So do you see any difference between the saleability, or at least people jumping from listening to the podcast to buying your books more so on the Dark Arts Theater, or do you see it more on the Horror Authors podcast?
Yeah, I honestly can't trace anything perceptible from either. Honestly, I just there's no I have opt-in. I have an opt-in offer on the Horror Writers podcast, and I don't get many signups coming through there. So I don't know. It's another thing too where I think Zach and I know it's sort of a long-term play. Like we're not. We didn't say, okay, let's do 6 episodes and see how many books we sell. I think we just said, let's just reach out to our tribe and provide some good content and see what happens. See, Zach's getting me all choked up now. I'm gonna cry.
Oh.
No kidding.
I'm just cutting onions.
Yeah, I did an interview with Condor and ended up like hacking through half of it. I can feel it coming, so you guys may have to bail me out at some point.
So I've got a question. I'll just jump in here. Why Zach? I know you said that he does what he says he's going to do, but how did you two come together and decide this is what we're going to do? In case someone else wants to do that with one of their writing buddies.
Yeah, well, Zach and I weren't writing buddies. We are now, but we started it out. Zach was listening to the show when I was doing it with Richard, and Richard and I just ran out of topics and decided, it wasn't worth it just to kind of sit and bullshit about stuff that didn't matter. And then, maybe 3 or 4 months went by, and I kind of said to Zach, like, hey, I've got this platform set up. I've got the distribution. I've got the domain. I've got the website. It's yours if you want it. And we kind of went back and forth, and he was like, okay, well, maybe I'll talk to some people about a co-host. And then I was like, well, maybe I'll just be involved a little bit, and then here we are, and we're co-hosting, and I basically said to Zach, like, I don't want to be responsible for everything, and so he was willing to take on and help me out, and that made all the difference, and Richard did too. I'm not saying Richard didn't help me out, but Richard and I were focused on writers, and we kind of hit a point where we're like, you know what, we got the round table, you've got the Creative Pen, you've got the SPP, you've got the Rocking Self-Publishing podcast. Like, we don't need another writers podcast. We're not going to add much to that conversation. So when Zach came along and he was thinking about it and kind of interested in getting into it, it just seemed like a good fit.
That makes sense. Totally makes sense. I want to jump back into a little bit on the collaboration side, because you touched on that you thought collaboration made you a better writer. So maybe if you can go a little deeper into that, why you think that is so much, and also, because we still get this all the time, right? People thinking about collaborating, what are some pitfalls or what are some suggestions you have for people finding other people to co-write with?
Yeah, I would say co-writing has made me a better writer, because just collaboration in general makes things better. See, I'm getting choked up again. It's all Zach's fault. I think collaboration just makes things better. You get a different perspective, you get a different viewpoint. People see things that you don't see. It's not easy. I'm not saying it's easy, but I think in the end, it definitely pays off. As far as my number one thing I think I would recommend is, if you're going to start a collaboration or you want to start co-writing, make sure you have an existing relationship. And I don't mean a romantic one, but
I thought you were going to say read your book on co-writing.
Well, you could, I don't have to.
But we already have the book.
I think it's important to kind of have a baseline relationship and to know someone and kind of know what their strengths are, what they're going to bring to it. If you're too alike, that's just as that doesn't help either. So kind of knowing the other person, I think, is really important.
Good stuff. X, you want to go next?
With the experience that you had with co-writing with Joanna, you were kind of writing two books in that sense. So,
yeah.
What kind of did you find? What were the major differences in collaborating on fiction versus nonfiction?
Yeah, it was Joanna took the lead on the fiction piece, and I took the lead on the nonfiction. So that was the biggest difference. And it's I think the nonfiction was easier for me because I didn't have to necessarily pull the voices together, whereas Joanna had I think she had the harder challenge in sort of melding our two voices into one cohesive narrative. But that's kind of how we approached it, and the nonfiction book was much shorter. I gotta give Joanna props. She did the bulk of the editing and revision, but we agreed, and that's another point. Wade asked about things to look out for, things to, tips. I think being very clear on what each person is going to do, you can't. I wouldn't underestimate that, and we knew from the beginning it was sort of Joanna's story idea, and she kind of gave me some story beats. We knew she was going to do the revisions and kind of meld the voices, but she was going to do the sort of the primary revision. All that stuff we knew ahead of time, and I think if whatever role that you fill in your collaboration, I think knowing ahead of time and planning that out is really important and smart.
Was it different for you having to go from usually being the fiction author and then more I guess spearheading the nonfiction book?
The bigger challenge was not doing the primary revision. That was, and I told Joanna that was kind of hard for me. I've said in a number of places that my favorite part of both the writing process and the collaboration process is doing revisions and not doing the first draft. And so when I'm looking forward normally in collaborations is someone who loves to do the first draft and hates to do revisions. I mean, that's the kind of natural pairing that you want to get. It's not that I don't like the first draft, but if I had my choice, I'd rather do the revisions. And so for Risen Gods, Joanna did the primary revisions, and I had to, that was a challenge for me. I had to give up. We're all a bit of control freaks. We're all writers, but kind of stepping away from that and but I trusted her and I knew her, and it turned out great. But it's still a challenge.
Well, in the end, also, I think no matter what, you kind of play to your strengths a lot. So you find that if you're good at doing that second draft, you almost want to do that second draft at that point, right?
Yes, and that's how I wrote Shadow Witch with Danny P. Is he did the whole first draft and then basically walked away from it, and then I did multiple revisions, and that worked out really well, and he was happy with it, and I was happy with it. So whatever because I asked him ahead of time, what's if you could choose to do any part of it, what would it be? And he said, oh, by far the first draft, because once I get past that, I don't want to touch it again. So I was like, all right, you're my man, let's do this.
Does that mean there'll be more collaboration between the two of you in the future?
Yeah, I hope. I don't know. Dan is busy into his Dark Vanishing series, which is awesome. It's post-apoc sort of dystopian stuff. It's really good. You guys should check it out if you haven't seen it yet. But I know he's been really busy with that, and he works a full-time job, and he writes kind of in the evenings and mornings. So yeah, I think I'd like to write something with Dan again. We'll just have to kind of see if the opportunity comes up.
And how did you handle the legal side of this collaboration? Were there contracts drawn up, or was it just a very strong, informal understanding?
No, I mean, we're friends, but this is business too, and so in all collaborations I do, and Joanna and I did it, and Dan and I did it. We have a simple agreement, and for us it's been 50-50, so it's pretty simple. We're half the expenses, half the royalties. But I think we even put a sample agreement in the co-writing book that Xavier mentioned. So, and if it's not in there, I can send it to you guys. You can post it. But just a real simple agreement. We didn't get a lawyer, and I'm not giving legal advice, but that was good enough for us.
Okay.
If you get a collaboration that's a little more complicated, or you're not doing a 50-50 split, the agreement might look different. But in our case, it was a pretty simple split.
And how much money did you end up putting into these ventures? Was that a 50-50 split as well, or?
Yeah, it was. I think Risen Gods cost us something like $45,000 US. Kidding.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay, I'm out.
Yeah, no, it's the usual. A couple thousand or so, editing, cover, the usual stuff. We didn't do anything crazy with it. We did an extra 99 designs for this really cool map that's in the beginning of Risen Gods of New Zealand, because the story takes place in New Zealand. So that was really cool.
Oh, does it? Should I check it for how accurate it is then?
I can't vouch for the accuracy of the map.
That's okay. That's why I make up fictional towns in New Zealand instead of going for something real.
Joanna lived there, though. She'll call you out on that, so you better be careful.
Well, I'm a Kiwi born and bred, so.
See, Zach thinks you're English, so what does he know, right?
Yeah, he thinks I'm British, yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, what?
I was like, wow, my accent must be pretty interesting to Americans. They think that.
Yeah, it'd be one thing to say Australian, then at least you wouldn't be too far off.
Just that way a bit in the sea, yeah.
Okay. Did I give it all that, Erica? I make sure I wasn't going to cut you off there.
I'm fine.
Okay. Talk a little bit about writing some stuff for Kindle Worlds, Jay. What would you like to write in most, and what do you think about the idea of Kindle Worlds or writing in other people's worlds? Is that something that you like to do, or is it just something that you dabbled in, or?
Yeah, I don't know, I have mixed feelings about it. I was absolutely floored when J.R. Rain asked me to kind of break open the seal on his world, and I was like, absolutely, I'll totally do that. And he writes great vampire stuff, so that was a no-brainer. And it was a novella. It's kind of short. I think it's like 20 or 25,000 words, something like that. So I jumped right in. I was like, yeah, absolutely, I'll do that. Long term, though, I don't know how I feel about it. Amazon takes a pretty big chunk of that, and they set the pricing, and you can't go anywhere else with it. You can't even give it away. So it's almost worse than going into Select, if that's bad. I'm not saying it is or not, but the process itself was really cool, and I know that in a lot of Kindle World situations, the writers who are writing in those worlds have no contact with the author. And in my case, however, I was really fortunate in that I was able to bounce ideas off of JR and kind of get his nod of approval on my story concept before I did it. And that was really important to me because I didn't want to let down his readers. I felt a responsibility to the world that he's crafted to make it good. So it's probably not a typical experience. So I would definitely write in JR's world again. I probably will. We've been talking about it, and he's thrown a couple of ideas at me. But as far as like just picking a random world and writing something in it without having any sort of relationship with that author, I don't know how I'd feel about that. But I do know it's a great way to kind of break in. If you don't have a platform and you're thinking about sort of where to start, you can write a short piece in someone else's world and just kind of get the feel of what it's like to self-publish and what you have to do and how to market it. And it'd be a great sort of on-ramp, I think, if you didn't want to go all in right away.
I never thought about it that way. That's a good point. I like that.
Now, if it was Clive Barker or Stephen King, would you write in those worlds?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I would definitely pay to hear to read your take on the Crimson King.
Yeah. Well, I didn't get the Crimson King, by the way. I just got. I don't want to disappoint people. I pushed out a little cryptic post a few months ago that I got permission from Mr. Barker to create an adaptation of one of his short stories, but it's not that one. So, but it's going to be cool. I'm working on it right now. I'm hoping to have it out by spring, but there's I feel a lot of responsibility with that one. Like
that's pressure right there. Holy shit! I don't know. That might scare me just a little.
Yeah.
Would you worry about becoming a Book of Blood if you like invoked the ire of Clive Barker?
I'd consider that an honor, I think.
A fate of chains awaits you, sir.
Yeah, I'll take it.
I gotta do a follow up on that. How does one go about asking to write in that world? I mean, did you just like? I don't know if you want to give all the secrets away, but it just kind of blows my mind. You just told me that. It's like what? So how did that come about?
Well, it's I'm kind of too dumb to know better, and so sometimes I do things and I tell the people about them and they're like, you did what? And I'm like, what? Was that wrong? Should I not have done that? And I honestly, I'm just kind of a blockhead, and sometimes I just get ideas, and I'm like, yeah, why not? I'll try this. And I had this crazy idea of one of the stories that Barker wrote was sort of the inspiration for the Black Fang betrayal that I did, the collaborative project that I did. And so around that time, and this was like 2.5 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, I started sending emails, and I got an email response from like one of his people, I guess, and I was very, very polite, and I was very persistent, and a few years later, I guess the email got to the right person and got this. I don't know exactly how it transpired, but I ended up getting permission to take one of his short stories and turn it into a multimedia adaptation. So that's what I'm doing, and like I said,
fucking cool.
I do stuff like that all the time, and most of the times it fails. Sometimes it pisses people off, and every once in a while, you get something like that, and it makes it all worth it. So I'm just kind of a blockhead, and I stumble into things, and I go, oops, sorry, and then people go, oh, it's all right.
It sounds like a really good way to go about it, though. It seems to get results.
Well, I don't know. I'm genuine. Like I love Clive Barker, and the whole point, like it's basically sort of like it's fan art in a way, and that's how I approach it. I'm like, I'm not asking for anything. I don't want, I'm basically, I want to sort of honor one of my influences, and that was kind of the, I don't want to call it a pitch because I wasn't even asking for anything. I was just basically saying, like, I'd love to do this, and I could probably do it anyways, but I want to be above board, and that was kind of the gist of the email. It's like, I want to create this, and but if I don't get your permission, I'm not going to do it, and so it happened.
That's really, really cool. That's really cool. I gotta be a blockhead more often or something.
Yeah, like I said, it's gonna backfire 9 out of 10 times, but you never know that one time that's gonna work.
Yeah. You don't know if you don't ask, I guess, too.
Yeah, that's true too. Yeah. Yep.
Fate of chains, man. Fate of chains. I would be freaked out if I got an email from Clive Barker.
Especially if you hadn't, instigated anything to.
Especially of course. But even if I was prepared for it, I would be a little spooked.
You probably, I don't know about, well, I won't speak for you, X, but I wouldn't believe it. I would think, okay, someone like Zach Bohannon's fucking with me.
Yes.
Yeah, and then, like, I don't know. I don't know who's behind the keyboard. I don't know who's manning email addresses, so I'm not making any claims about anything. I'm just I know for my own sake that I have the permission to do this. So
yeah, you guys are in BFF7T.
No, I don't want anyone to think like I'm like on the phone with Clive Barker every week, like chatting it up. That's not the case.
He knows your kids' names and all that.
Yeah, I don't send him Christmas cards. He doesn't send me Christmas cards.
Oh man, but could you imagine the card that you'd get from him?
Yeah, that would be interesting.
That would be pretty awesome.
That would be pretty awesome. So that's a really cool project that you got going on. What other things do you got rolling out for 2016? What kind of goals you got for this year in writing and other stuff?
I hate to give this guy more airtime, but Zach and I are going to be hopefully co-writing a trilogy this year, and we've been talking about it for a while, and I think probably sometime in first quarter of this year we're gonna get started on that. So I got that in the works. As I mentioned, Glenn James and I are we're almost done with the third the first draft of the third book and of a trilogy, and we're probably going to make it either a 6 or 9 book series, but we're going to start with a trilogy, and so that'll come out this year. And then I have one solo book that's as soon as I get it back from the editor, that might be only 4 weeks or so away from publication. And then I have one story idea that I just started working on that I'm really excited about. It's something really different, and I'm excited to get into that. So that's probably going to take up most of my year.
Sounds pretty full.
Yeah, I mean, if everything breaks and goes the way it should, I could end up anywhere from 7 to 10 books out this year. Not myself, but in total. So that would be a pretty good year for me. I'd be pretty happy with that.
Definitely. Xavier, you look like you were going to say something.
Well, in that same vein, since you're always trying and tinkering these different angles to find a larger audience, but with the YouTube book tracks, what are there any new tricks that you're testing at the moment or looking forward to trying out?
New tricks. I have some ideas in the works, but it's really kind of early, so I don't really even have much to share. Unfortunately, or fortunately, however you want to look at it, there's not really sort of a silver bullet. I think everybody wants that. Everyone wants to know, like, all right, what's the next Facebook advertising, or what's the next BookBub? And I've kind of I don't I guess I've kind of backed up a little bit on that, and I'm not as maniacal about hitting a daily word count every single day. I'm being more methodic about what I write. Even though I'm coming out with Dark Arts Theater Volume 2, I've pulled back in other areas, other promotional areas. I'm trying to focus more on content this year. I'm trying to create as much really good content, because it seems to me, and I've only been at this for 3 or 4 years, but in the time that I've been at it, it seems like the only constant, the only thing that moves you forward is a new book or new stuff, new content, stuff that people want, entertainment or information. Everything else seems to be a short-term tactic that has a shelf life. So I'm trying not to chase those as much as I have in the past. It's hard because sometimes you see people getting almost immediate, incredible results, but that typically doesn't happen for everyone. So that's why I'm sort of coming back to, I guess, where I was when I first started indie publishing in 2011, 2012, which is just write really good books and keep writing them. So that's kind of where my mindset is right now, and that's why the collaboration stuff is really exciting for me, because as I saw with Joanna and with Dan, and with the other collaborations, Black Fang and such, all that stuff happens at a hyper pace, and it's happening faster and better than I could by myself. So
yeah,
that's why I'm excited.
Does that keep you more motivated to have that many more people kind of keeping you kind of running and asking where are the edits or whatever?
Oh, definitely. I've used the analogy of like a workout buddy, especially in a short term. If you're working out by yourself and you live where X or I do, and you get up and it's 10 degrees and 3 feet of snow outside, it's easy to just roll over and go back to bed. But if you know that you're going to go pick up your friend and then you're going to head to the gym before work, you're going to do it. You're not going to let your friend down. And the co-writing is kind of that same mentality. And there were days where Joanna and I both wanted she got sick. She was sick for a period of time. There were days where I felt like I was not in tune with the story, with the theme, or what was happening, and I didn't want to write. But when someone's counting on you, and they're counting on your words coming next, it's important. And in Joanna's case, we were A-Bing it, so we were just bouncing scenes back and forth, and she's in the UK and I'm in the US, and so I knew when I got up in the morning, I knew her words were going to be there, and I knew that I had to get my words in there before I went to bed, because then she was going to get up and expect to see my words. So it wasn't easy, but it was really worth it, and it kept us focused, and we got it done.
What program did you guys use to do that, especially with that long a distance?
We used we were going to use Scrivener, but we just didn't get the time to work out the technical details of sharing a Scrivener project file. So we ended up just writing the real basic stuff in Google Docs, and then Joanna would then take it into Scrivener and did everything after that in Scrivener.
Sweet.
Yeah, I wonder if more people will start utilizing Google Docs in that sense, because I think that is one flaw that Scrivener does have as far as that collaboration. You can't work on the same file at the same time.
Right, and that probably wasn't going to be an issue for us, because we knew we were going to be writing at different times of the day since we were on different continents. But it just, when software is not designed to do that, and then you try and make it do that, you're kind of asking for trouble. So that's why we're like, we'll just get the first draft in Google Docs, and then she would just, real simple, like just copy paste from the Google Doc into Scrivener, and that seemed to work out pretty well.
Yeah, because if one person left Scrivener open accidentally, that could have huge ramifications as to whose saved file is the actual saved file.
Yeah.
And I'm the kind of person that leaves Scrivener open at all times as like the harbinger. Like it's watching me, and it knows I'm not putting words into it. So I leave it open all the time, just because if it's there, I'm going to be tempted to click over and at least read over what I last wrote.
Yeah, yeah. So I don't know. I'm sure the developers of Scrivener have heard that probably a few thousand times. I would not be surprised if they're sitting in a room coding that right now. But as of November of 2015, we didn't have that option. So, but it worked fine.
It's interesting you mentioned, you said, I've been in this that long, it's like 4 years ago or whatever, but really as being in self-publishing 4 years, I consider you like a veteran. Like you've done a lot of stuff already and things like that. So, and you did mention this last answer about, going back to the basics of just writing good stuff. But maybe put your crystal ball up there a little bit. What do you see coming forward for us in the self-publishing industry, or what is your eye on, or anything like that?
I'll tell you, sadly, I'm not sure what's going to happen with audiobooks. That's kind of a concern of mine. I don't know if you guys were listening. It was Somewhere Book Show this week. The guys were talking about the technology around the computer-driven voices, and they're not going to replace people, but I think it could severely undercut the audiobook market. So I kind of have my eye on that. I'm also not crazy about the exclusivity you have through ACX. So I don't know. That's kind of a big question mark. I'm not really sure what to go with that. I think right now what I'm thinking about, a year or two down the road, is I consider myself an entertainer, not necessarily a writer. I love to write, and that's the primary form of entertainment I want to create. But I also recognize that the entertainment landscape changes dramatically and often, and sometimes radically, and so I always sort of have my ear to the track. Like the Dark Arts Theater is a good example. Does an author need to know how to video edit? Absolutely not. There's no reason for that. But if you are aspiring to do something beyond writing, or you want to grow in a certain direction, like video and video games, I think are two areas where storytellers can find a new audience and maybe even sort of transform or morph into a different type of entertainer. So it's a bit of an abstract idea, and I know I'm being a little cagey about it, but I really think sort of the multimedia stuff, the video and the video games, I think if you're a good storyteller and you at least sort of have a basic understanding of how you can translate your story to those other mediums, I think that's the future. There will always be books. People will always read books. I'm not saying that. I think it's going to be harder and harder to be just a writer. I think that's kind of what I'm thinking right now.
Well, we had a similar talk with Robert Chess-Shute the other day on our Sunday show. We were talking about how it's almost getting to that point where it might be a good idea to, after you've written the book, to be writing that script, just because that might be that point that Hollywood knocks and they say, yeah, well, we could hire someone to write the script based on your book, and you're like, actually, it's already done.
Yeah.
Or as he pointed out, the app that Amazon has, there's a button to actually submit your script to Amazon directly. So since Amazon's creating more original television-like content, that could be another option.
Yeah, and I think too the future is really going to be with the independent type of production houses, the same way we've seen happen with publishing. Zach and I talked to a movie maker on the Horror Writers podcast, and he was basically saying Hollywood budgets are getting slashed left and right, and the amount of money that's available to make films has been dramatically cut, and Hollywood's only accepting X number of films. So I think there's going to be a cottage industry. There already is, but I think there's going to be a bigger opportunity for that mid-level movie maker, and as the technology continues to get better and faster and cheaper, I think you're going to have more and more people who are able to tell a really compelling story on a very tight budget with very little gear, and that's great news for authors.
Yeah, it definitely is, and that's what I was doing primarily when I was living in Ottawa and Toronto, and it is a booming industry as far as because the cameras that the people can get nowadays, usually will only run between 1,000, 5,000 for something that's almost close to industry quality as far as film. So. Yeah, the game is definitely changing as far as that goes. So screenwriters are going to become very valuable, but at the same time, especially in the case of Amazon, then you're going to be adhering to budgets, and that's something that as a screenwriter you have to. It's very different playing field versus writing prose, because you could go off on a random tangent in your book and you can pants it, but as far as whether or not your film gets picked up or not will depend on you have a random dragon that just appears out of this basement, and up until this point, it kind of had felt like it was the budget of a sitcom, and that's too much money. Sorry, fail.
And you know what? That also translates back to storytelling. Like, I've found myself stripping away a lot of what I consider to be my own crutches. When I first started writing, I had so many elements in my stories that were supernatural, paranormal, magical, whatever, and I wasn't writing fantasy necessarily. Like, I think I relied on a lot of sort of external forces to make a compelling story, and I think what I'm doing now is I'm stripping that down, and I'm forcing myself to tell really good stories that are character driven, that are humanistic, and I could see from a movie maker standpoint, like, okay, if we're going to take this book and make a movie out of it, and all we need is like a farmhouse and a dirt road, but it's a really good story. I think that's really important. It's not the same, but like The Martian is a good example. That's a really simple story. There's not like 50 people in the cast, and yes, it's on Mars, but like, you could have filmed that in the Grand Canyon or whatever, but like, it's a really simple story. It's like a guy's left and what's going to happen. And I think people are now, because there's so much out there, if you can tell a really good story without all the bells and whistles to kind of distract people, I think that in a way it resonates with people even more.
Yeah, out of all the, I think probably about 11 short films that I worked on when I was doing that, I'm pretty sure every single one of the ones that actually made it to the indie film market, or at least were shopped around at film festivals, were heavily introspective.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, and yeah, like you were saying, it's more about character arc rather than any kind of exposition or glamour of what's actually going on. Try to be thinking about what's going on with the character. Like the one that won awards for the one that we did was all about a guy who had short-term memory loss. So, eventually he discovers that these people that are following him every day, and this sense of paranoia that's building around him, these are just the people that his family has hired to keep tabs on him, and he has this a daughter that's now about like 4 or 5 years old, and blah blah blah. So you do have to kind of play off of more guttural emotions and storylines for sure. You have to be more humanistic about it.
Mm-hmm.
Good point. Hey, Zach Bohannon finally chimed in and asked, so you're about ready to release your new book in 4 weeks. Are you ready to say what it's about yet?
No, Zach, I'm not. I'm not even telling you.
You'll be in suspense.
Yeah, well, a lot can happen in 4 weeks.
I honestly don't have a title yet, so I can't. That's what I can say. This is a book that's been killing me. This book is, in the past, I've written books from first draft to publication in maybe 2 to 3 months, and this book I've been working on for 2.5 years, and it's killing me, and I will not give up on it. and I know there's a reason why I won't give up on it, and so I'm staying at it. But I can't really say much about it because I don't have a title yet. So it'll be coming soon.
That's good. Zach busting your chops.
Of course. I can't believe he's still there. I wish the guy would go to bed already.
We are getting close to the top of the hour. Xavier or Erica, you guys got questions that didn't get answered? I think I hit all of mine. So.
Yeah. I had for shits and giggles, I had signed up for your mailing list the other day.
Thanks.
And you offer like a digital gift box for the readers, and then I noticed today I also got an extra email from auto respond offering another audiobook. How much of a conversation do you find that you have in the email autoresponders for the books rather than the audiobooks? Because that's kind of, it's a gift box of random stuff.
Yeah, it is, and it's some of it is music I've created. So again, there's that connection between horror and heavy metal. The music isn't heavy metal; it was music I composed for my book track, but I thought it was pretty cool, so I put it in there. It's kind of good music. There's no vocals, so it's you can kind of read to it. But I get responses to that, and yeah, it's an autoresponder, but anyone that replies to that, I reply back to them. So. I do read them, and response has been pretty good. I don't know how many people are downloading the entire gift box and listening to all the music and reading everything, but I want to over deliver, and it's all free, so I hope people enjoy it.
Well, I think that's a much better approach rather than if you sign up, I'll give you a free book. That might have impressed somebody. At the initial Kindle Gold Rush days, but now it's at this point where a free book. Well, what else you got? Yeah,
and again, like we talked about earlier, I think it's going to be harder to differentiate yourself, and the fact that I have a musical background and passion, and I've been able to create some music. If I can kind of weave that in a way that's authentic and people dig it, and it's like, oh, that guy's giving me music and something to read. That's kind of different. Who knows? That could be the difference. That could catch someone's eye and kind of bring them into my tribe.
Yeah, totally. Wade, I think you had a question in the doc, just asking. How much do you think the music affects your writing, and given that it's such a bigger part of your life?
Yeah, it's. The short answer is I operate the same way as a writer as I did as a musician. So I'm not in a band currently, but I've been in bands all my life, and that's collaboration. Even if you are a solo artist and you have a touring band, you still have to work with other people, and so I love that idea of sort of bringing a raw concept into a room, and then by the end of the night you have a song or you have a jam, and the collaboration and the writing is that same kind of process. Like, it ends up better than any one person could have made it. So I think it was a natural transition for me to take my approach from my band into my writing.
That's great. Do you still, like you said, you're not in a band anymore, but are you still independently making music besides for like things like the book tracks?
Yeah, I noodle here and there for my own entertainment. I got my guitar's behind me there, but I do have a few things in the works where I was like, because one of the things I really like doing the book track stuff. I don't know if you guys know Book Track. You should check it out. You can use their library of background audio for the book, or you can upload your own. And so I have, I've got all the gear and stuff, and so I think it was the Hugh Howey contest for his book track, I created original music for that, and I really enjoyed it. And so I was thinking like video game stuff or movie scores, or I'm not a composer, but I could do some basic stuff and really enjoy that. And there might be some opportunities in my own work where I can kind of use those skills too.
That's cool. Yeah, I have a background doing film scores. That's primarily what I was doing when I was doing screenwriting and film scores when I was in the industry. So, yeah, I could definitely see how that would have its lure. being able to provide the soundtrack to your own book. But then I always worried that it's getting a little too narcissistic at that point. This is the experience, and you have to feel this way.
Because for those that don't have any, creative music ability at all, you can just list tracks that you think that
You do a playlist.
will suit it, so people can find them themselves and listen along.
Absolutely.
Some people do a Spotify or 8-tracks playlist and stuff like that.
Yeah, good idea. All right, Erica, was there anything else, or?
No, not that. Well, I think we're at time, Wade.
Yeah, we are. So I did want to. Xavier just mentioned it just a minute ago, but Sundays, well, Sundays in the U.S. anyway, Mondays over there in New Zealand, we've got another sideshow going on. More of a news roundtable, if you will, via Blab. Is there a link or anything that we have on our homepage for that yet? No, but we'll get that.
No, but we do have the first show up. It's on the website, so just go look for it there. It's probably called something like the Roundtable Roundup, and the date, which I think was the 17th of January. So yeah, keep an eye out for it. Or just subscribe to the WordPress site, and anytime we post a podcast or we post a blog post, you'll automatically get an email notification about it.
That's right, self-publishingroundtable.com. You guys check it out. So, Jay, thank you so much.
Always a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Vice versa. It's really good talking to you. Your wealth of information and interesting stuff. Get Clive Barker to give you permission to write in this world. All right, but anyway.
Yeah, say hi to Clive for me.
Yeah, will you please? Yes.
We go way back.
All right, everybody. Well, make sure you check us out again next week. And Xavier, do you have anything to say?
Good night, internets.